Alright, so now we're back with the second dungeon in this series, Sohm all normal. So we do gain one extra skill this time around, that being Hisatsu Gaioten, I believe. Let's check real quick. Yes, Hisatsu Gaioten. So this is just a rush forward. You rush to the target within striking range. It costs 10 on the Kinky gauge. Kanky. Sometimes I say kinky, I guess. Take it as you will. But in this video I'll be focusing a little less on the rotations and whatnot, and I'll be focusing more on the actual dungeon itself. If I could type here, get a hello out to everybody. Alright, so this dungeon actually can give the tank a few problems if you pull too big. So if you're the tank, or you know, just whatever tank you get, if you're not playing the tank, be a little bit lenient with them if they pull small, because if they pull big they can take some really serious hits here. And a dead tank is not a good tank, so you'd rather pull small than end up wiping a time or two, right? Sounds better to just go a little bit slower. Slow and steady wins the race, as they say. Getting off a few good combos here. Remember positionals. Gecko in the rear. Kasha on the, I guess the sides would be flanks. I never refer to them as flanks, I just call them the side, but however you want to refer to it. And then of course, Yukikaze can be on any side. Using 20 Kanki to use Kaiten. Kaiten is always a good ability to use. I usually reserve it for Madari Setsugeka only. That's the 3-sen single target attack. But you know, you can use it with other abilities at certain times. It really just depends on the situation, but more often than not, if you're going against a boss, Madari Setsugeka with Kaiten is going to be the best option for you. Especially if you get a crit and direct hit with that, it's going to hit really, really hard. Seeing those high numbers is what makes playing Samurai so fun, at least in my opinion. So I haven't used our new ability yet because there hasn't really been much of a need to, but here in just a moment I'll try and use it just to sort of show it off. So basically, Hisatsu Gaioten it's basically just a gap closer. You use it, you rush up to the enemy, you're within striking range. That's really all there is to it. It does do a little bit of damage, but it's nothing major. It's just a teeny tiny little bit of damage. I think it's 100 potency. Really basic. Even Hikaze, your standard attack, will do more damage. So it's not really something you'll be using for a damage perspective. But you probably will want to use it for closing gaps. Like if you have to run away from mechanics and you want to just rush right back into the fight, you can just rush right up to them and start doing damage again. So that's always nice. That's usually how I use it. But of course there's a variety of ways you can use it, and in PvP it's completely different. In PvP it's just a rush straight forward, but we can cover that in an entirely separate video if I ever make any PvP videos. PvP isn't really my thing in this game. But, you know, if you want that kind of thing, then I can look into it. Alright, so here's the first boss. Raskovnik. So this guy actually does have a mechanic, but for the most part, we can probably ignore it. Just because of how much DPS we have. Shouldn't be too much of a struggle. Go ahead and put Higanbana on there. Get that dot going. Avoid the AoEs, nothing major. So during this boss fight, I'll show you our new... Oh, okay, actually, here's a mechanic right here. So this right here means you need to be just a little bit away from the boss. Not super far, but a little bit. He's going to pull you towards you and stun you, and you need to run away. If you're in that AoE, when it goes off, he will eat you. And that's definitely not a good thing. It doesn't kill you, but it does do a lot of damage. Alright, so here he is doing it to us again. So let's run away a little bit. He's going to pull us in. I'm going to run away. Now we'll go ahead and use our new move, Hisatsu Kaiuten. And as you can see, it's just a gap closer. Does a little bit of damage on the top. Nothing major. Nothing special. So yeah, the level 54 ability is kind of underwhelming, but it does have its uses, for sure. It definitely has its uses. And that's the end of the first boss. Pretty simple. And continuing on. Out of the 3 bosses in this dungeon, I would probably say the second boss might actually be the hardest if you don't understand the mechanics. But of course I will cover the mechanics as we get there. Oh, also I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, I'm joined again by Cassie Belle. It's always nice to have a friend along when you're doing dungeons. Just makes it a lot more fun in my opinion. Plus, having a healer that you can trust is always a good thing. So the reason I swapped enemies there to do my Madari Setsugeka is because if I used it on that one enemy I had been working on, it would have done more damage than the amount of HP he had left, which would have meant wasted potential. So I moved over to the other enemy to take advantage of all the potential. And then I moved back to go ahead and finish him off. So that's just a way of maximizing your DPS efficiency. It's not something you have to do, but it's efficient. It's more efficient, so I like to do it. So these pulls leading up to the second boss aren't really anything special. It's basically just a few trash pulls followed up by a dragon. There are 3 different types of dragons. There's a Pyro Dragon, a Cryo Dragon, and, well, to be honest with you, I can't actually remember the third one, but there are 3 dragons, and as you can see there, after you damage them to half health, they fly away, and we will meet them again later on in the dungeon. But that's later on, and we'll cover that as we get to it. So that dragon up there that you can sort of see, that's the Cryo Dragon. Working on the enemies here. We can actually do some AoE work on this group. We got 5 enemies. So let me get that combo off, and then let's go to work on AoEs. Kaiten into Tenkagoken. So yeah, as I said before, Samurai is a really good class for AoE damage. You can really get some high damage numbers off. The only real problem is that you will burn through your TP extremely quickly, and as you saw there, I used Invigorate right there, which gives you back 400 TP immediately as a recast of 2 minutes. So it's something you can use pretty often, but not super often. Pretty much a maximum of twice, maybe 3 times between boss fights. Get out of the way of that. So yeah, here's the Cryo Dragon, like I was saying. Go ahead and get him out of here. Have a nice day, Mr. Cryo Dragon, sir. Should probably roll on this. Alright, and then the last trash pull before the second boss. So when I did this dungeon for the very first time, the second boss really tripped me up. Like, I remember wiping a few times on this boss, just because I didn't know the mechanics. And, well, the rest of my group didn't exactly know how to do them either, but it was partially my fault. Partially everyone's fault, but I'm going to go ahead and go over the mechanics. It's not too bad as long as you know what you're doing. It's actually pretty simple if you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can wipe pretty easily. So this guy's name is Maya. He's a dinosaur-looking guy, pretty obviously. He's got 2 main mechanics, and I'll get to that in a moment. Well, actually there's 3 mechanics. But there's only 2 that you really have to worry about as a DPS. The Primordial Roar, which he's using right there, is just a room-wide AoE. Just basic damage. Your healer can heal through that. So now as you can see we have some adds. Room of the Mountain and Blood of the Mountain. So what he's going to do is he's going to start jumping to the rooms and the bloods. And he's going to give one of us a marker. So I got a blue marker. If you get a blue marker, you need to get away from the rest of your party because it's an AoE attack. If it's a red marker, you need to stack. So now we stack on this guy. And that's basically the main mechanic right there. As long as you can do that, you'll be fine for the most part. Alright, red, so we stack. My party isn't stacking. Not too bad since we're pretty overgeared for this anyway. Alright, blue markers, now we move away. I got marked quite a few times, so that's really good for the purpose of the video, I suppose. Activated Bloodbath there, just getting a little bit extra healing. Alright, so this guy right here, Chime of the Mountain. As soon as this guy spawns, you and your entire party need to focus this thing down, because if it goes off, it wipes your group. Sometimes, if you're really geared and you have like shields on from an Astrologian or Scholar, you can usually survive it, but just barely. The tank will survive, of course, but if there's only a tank alive, that's not going to help us much. So just be watching out for that. Alright, red markers, we all stack again. Looks like just the tank is paying attention right now. How the fart came up at the last second. Blue marker, get away. And he's gone. Not too bad once you know what you're supposed to do. But yeah, like I said, if you're confused and you're just aiming around in the dark trying to figure out what to do, it can be kind of confusing and it can cause some wipes there. So just pay attention to what's going on, make sure you kill the Chime as it spawns, and yeah, pretty simple. Alright, so now we're moving on to the last stretch here. The last few trash pulls before the boss. There's nothing special here, I just walked right into that AoE. Oh, lucky I dodged it. Anyway, there's nothing too special about this first pull. There is a bit of explanation for the second pull though, so I'll go over that when we get there. But for now, just taking out these guys right here. Nothing difficult, just doing some combos. Could probably be doing an AoE, maybe. There were 4, but I don't know, at this point. I've already missed my opportunity. Alright, so here comes a wyvern. Gotta deal with this guy. For some reason I thought he was facing me. I have no idea why. So yeah, you probably won't see me use the level 54 ability, Hisatsu Kaioten. This one right here, you probably won't see me use that super often. Pretty much just on boss fights. And even then, like, not every time. It really just depends on what mechanics are going on. Because most of the time I try to attack and then run from the AoE in such a way that when I get back, I'm ready to use my next ability right as I get back. So I don't have to wait. There's no cooldown time on that. So I try to just time it manually as perfect as possible. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. In which case I'll start using those abilities. So here are all the dragons. I said earlier that we'd see them again. So they all came back. We have all 3 dragons. Now we have to kill them for real. Exactly the same as before. Plain and simple. And that's all the trash pulls, and we're on to the final boss now. So this final boss definitely does have a couple mechanics you really got to watch out for, or you can wipe your group. So I guess in certain ways this boss is actually harder than the second boss, which would make sense considering it's the final boss of the dungeon. But as I have done so far, I will cover each mechanic as we get to it. Tioman. Alright, so let's start out by getting a Higginbana on him. Alright, so as you can see, he dropped some pretty crazy AoEs, so you should definitely be paying attention to those. Let me zoom out here a little bit more, get a better view. Sometimes on enemies this big, it can be hard to get off positionals, but you should just do your best. Alright, so this icon we got right now means we're getting a meteor, which means you want to get as far away from the boss and the tank as possible. And then you're going to get these symbols down here. Basically just run as far away from those circles that just dropped as possible. If you get hit directly by one of those meteors, you instantly die. It doesn't matter how much health you have, you're dead. And also it does a room-wide AoE, so it will hurt you, and it will hurt everyone else as well, not just you. So it's very important that you drop them away from everyone. Alright, so now he's doing his second main mechanic, which is going to be the Wings of Tragedy and Injury. So basically all you have to do here is just damage each wing, nothing complicated. Now while he's in this state, he's going to be dropping these cluster meteors, which you just saw on me, which is marked by that rock icon and like the little splinter icon around it. It means it's going to drop a cluster of rocks on your position, which means just get away from your party members. But it's not going to be a room-wide AoE, so don't worry about that. Doing the big AoE thing again. Another room-wide AoE. You drop them pretty often. Part of the difficulty of this fight is just dodging the AoEs. Alright, he's dropping comets again. Alright, I got it again, so I'll go ahead and run back here. Wait till it drops down and then run away from it. Alright, and that's the third boss, and that is the Aerie. Not the Aerie, I apologize, that's the next dungeon. That was Sohm all normal mode. Speaking of the Aerie though, that is going to be the next dungeon I'll be doing in the next video, the level 55 dungeon. It actually has quite a few special mechanics, so I'll try and cover those as best I can. But yeah, this one, Sohm, not too difficult, as long as you pay attention to all the AoEs that are dropping around you, and especially on that third boss, make sure you get rid of those meteors, get them to the back of the room, away from your party, so that you don't all die, because a dead party is not a healthy party, and that's not what we want. We don't want to die. That's not our ultimate objective here. But yeah, with that is going to conclude this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with the Aerie. Take care.